So successful marriage and successful parenting then.
So far.
Fingers crossed, fingers
Yeah.
crossed. And I would say, because I'm British, I would say touch wood. However,
Yeah.
in the United States, you don't really say touch wood, do you?
No, we would say knock on wood. And since I'm a dad, I'm going to do a dad joke here. Yeah, we say knock on wood for good luck. And if there isn't any wood around, we just knock on our head.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video interview conversation with a wonderful guest. We're recording this on a Saturday, which is unusual for me. Usually, I'm a bit of a weekend warrior, which means that I will go out and do lots of things at the weekend, and there is zero work. But I decided to make an exception for our guest today, and we'll get into that. But first, tell me, where are you from and where are you watching this video from? Leave us a comment and I'm curious to find out. So with all that being said, Brent, hello, welcome.
Hey, thanks so much, Lewis. I'm glad you invited me onto your show. It's a pleasure.
The pleasure is all mine. So first, could you introduce yourself and tell everybody about you?
I could, yeah. I am Brent from American English with Brent. I have the YouTube, the Instagram, all of that. But I'm also an actual English teacher in the United States. I've been an English teacher for over 20 years. So maybe that is one of the reasons we are doing this on a Saturday is because I have a teaching job Monday through Friday.
Great, excellent. So first, tell me why English teaching? How did you get into this line of work?
That's a good question because when I first went to college, I wanted to do the whole business thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then I met a girl and she was going to be a teacher. And I thought, well, if I ever marry her, we could have the summers off. I actually love the English language. I love reading. She was going to be a teacher. We call it physical education in the United States, like
Yeah.
basketball. So I thought if we ever have a family, we could have the summers off together. I like working with younger people. And so luckily it worked out. She and I, my wife's name is Jamie. We've been together nearly 30 years, which gives you an idea of how old I am. I will be turning 50 this year.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on having such a long-lasting marriage. And it seems like you were kind of planning it from the day that you met her, because it was like, well, if she's going to be a teacher, then I should be a teacher as well. This is, yeah.
The connection was, to be honest, the connection was pretty immediate. It was kind of scary. Like, whoa, I think she's the one. So far she has been. I don't know. Maybe next year something will happen, but so far so good.
You'll turn 50 and then have a midlife crisis and be like, wait, what if I had studied business instead? Ah.
Don't put ideas into my head, Lewis. We're gonna try to keep it on the down low here.
Absolutely. Now, a nice phrasal verb that comes to mind related to this is to hit it off. So it seems like you had a great connection from the get-go. So you and your wife are now really hit it off when you met each other. You had a great relationship from the beginning. So yeah.
Yeah, we really did. We're
Wonderful.
both still teachers and we have the summers off. It gives us a great opportunity to travel now that our kids are in their late teens. Both are in schools away from us. So here's another term. We are empty nesters for the most part. We've raised kids. So far, they're doing pretty well. They have stayed out of a jail so far. So we have just the two of us at home most of the time.
Hey, so successful marriage and successful parenting then.
So far.
Fingers crossed, fingers
Yeah.
crossed. And I would say, because I'm British, I would say touch wood. However, in the United States, you don't really say touch wood, do you?
No, we would say knock on wood. And since I'm a dad, I'm going to do a dad joke here. Yeah, we say knock on wood for good luck. And if there isn't any wood around, we just knock on our head.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, yeah. I love dad jokes as well. I don't know how many you know off by heart, like from memory, but one that comes to mind that I've told a few times is Brent, how do you organize a party in space?
Lewis, I have no idea.
You plan it.
Good one, Lewis. It's a good
Woo!
one.
I'm just gonna see the retention of the video now that everybody stops watching.
Right now, the dad jokes don't land that well.
No, 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 no. You have your holidays in summer. They're really, really long. In the United States, how long are the summer holidays? Because in the UK, it's only like 6 or 7 weeks, so it's a long time, but it's not like endless.
Yeah, ours are a little bit longer. We have about probably 9 weeks, 9 weeks. And I get usually 2 weeks off during the winter. I get a week off in February, a week off in April. We get like a half a week during Thanksgiving. So there's no shortage of holidays or vacations for teachers. I can't complain much.
And generally speaking, in summer, what do you do? Where do you go?
Yeah, for most of the time, we would take we didn't have a pool at our house, but we went to this amusement park where we had season passes. So we could drive maybe 30 minutes away and we would hang out there quite a bit. Now that my kids are in school, when they come home, they usually work to try to earn money throughout the school year. So, we just a lot of relaxing, a lot of YouTube videos. I never stop with that, so it gives me an opportunity to focus more on YouTube. This summer, I am for the last 2 summers. There has been a tradition. Your audience might know this guy named Bob the Canadian. He's kind of a big English teacher in Canada. I think he has like over 2 million subs. But he is also a teacher. And so we have the summers off and we have been meeting up to film some English videos during the summer. That's become our tradition, which we will continue this summer too. That's one of the highlights of my year.
Perfect. I mean, it sounds great. And speaking about that, I've actually got an interview with him next week. So for people who are watching this, in a couple of weeks, there will be the Bob the Canadian interview chit chat. So I look forward to recording it and getting to know him more. And yeah, I can bring up your name with him as well, being like, so you and Brent in summer, you record videos. That sounds like a blast. It sounds amazing.
It's so fun. Now, you might have a slightly different channel than I have, but most of the stuff I do is completely alone. So I edit by myself. So it is good to sometimes get with another teacher like we're doing today and just talk with somebody else besides just yourself.
Uh-huh. And am I right in thinking that you're based around New York?
I guess relatively speaking, it would take me about 6 hours to drive to New York. So, a little day trip. I was there a couple months ago during Thanksgiving. So I live in the state of Maine, which is like really close to Canada. I could be in Canada in about less than 2 hours.
So you're closer to Canada than you are to New York. Interesting.
Yeah,
And Maine is famous for lobster,
it
maybe?
is. That might be the only thing, but we have a beautiful coastline. But yeah, our lobsters, I think, are pretty well known around the world.
Excellent. And what else is there to see or do in Maine, if anything?
Oh, well, there's a lot of natural beauty. That's for sure. We have both the ocean and we have the mountains. We have some beautiful lighthouses. Um, yeah, just a lot of nature, not a lot of people.
Okay. I
We're
mean,
like 1 million people, and it's a pretty big state.
so it's almost like you're out in the sticks, so to speak.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I do live in one of the like few cities in Maine, but last year we did have a moose run across the road. I have deer in my backyard all the time. So yeah, we're pretty country.
Excellent. Your backyard, very American. I would always say my garden, and you can also say my back garden. But yeah, there are some little English versus American vocabulary stuff that we're going to see kind of popping up throughout this conversation. There was holiday and vacation earlier. We've just had backyard and garden. So it's interesting for our viewers to be kind of on the lookout with their eyes peeled and ears ready, being like, oh, that's American English. Oh, that's British English.
One thing that you said earlier, and I didn't know this until recently, and I consider myself a bit of an Anglophile. I really do love British culture. I like Beatles. I like Shakespeare. I have a lot of respect. So I've heard a lot of British English in my life. And I don't know if this is new or I didn't pick it up before. Another English phrasal verb. I don't know if I heard it before, but you will often say, or people in England will often say at the weekend. When we say on the weekend, kind of a crazy preposition. Most of the time, I think we say prepositions pretty much the same, but I think in that case, we don't.
No, this is an interesting difference because it's also a common mistake made by English learners that they'll usually say in the weekend, or at least with my predominantly Spanish-speaking students. I often have to correct them and be like, in the weekend? And then they tend to say, on the weekend. And I'm like, yeah, perfect. But that is much more American. So for British English speakers, it's more common for us to say at the weekend. However, there are plenty of American English kind of trends and tendencies that are coming over to the UK, and things are blending a little bit. So you will hear that English people also say on the weekend, but at the weekend for me is slightly more authentically British or quintessentially British.
Now, I have a theory, Lewis. You
Go on.
feel free to disagree, but there is no doubt that the British invented our language. But I almost think that the Americans have perfected it.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that, Lewis?
I mean, I would say that Americans have maybe standardized English. The reason why I say this is because there are so many people around the United States and it's such a huge place. However, in many cases, people's accents are pretty similar. Like there are exceptions. In the Deep South, for example, maybe people from New York. I don't know. There are more subtle differences too. But for non-native speakers or even English people, it's hard for us to really tell the difference between someone from, I don't know, Massachusetts and, I don't know, somewhere else, or Washington State.
Yeah.
So everything's kind of standardized a little bit more. So there are fewer differences, which we have so many regional differences in the United Kingdom. And it does feel like you're listening to different languages at times, comparing a Scot and a Welsh person with someone else from Cambridge, for example. So yeah, that's my take.
Okay. So you won't go as far as to say that the Americans have perfected it.
I mean, no, but I'm interested to hear your take on it. Why do you think this is the case?
I was just trying to, poke the bear, start some controversy.
In my case, I'm slightly different to you in the sense that I don't really read a lot of like literature. And when I was growing up at school, I wasn't that interested in English as a subject, but I was always interested in traveling and other languages. So then as you are focusing on like your future, traveling around, picking up different languages, studying them, then you come to the realization that in order to do this and have a stable income, you kind of need to use the skills that you are given, which is being a native English speaker, so that you can teach classes. So that's how I ended up becoming an English teacher. And it wasn't that I was a lover of Shakespeare or anything like that. It was just that I liked other languages and travel, really. So, yeah.
I think you said you also speak Spanish, correct? You've
My Spanish is very good because of my girlfriend. She's Spanish, but not only that, I went to university, and at university I studied Spanish, but I only really started to get good when I was abroad and obviously chatting to my girlfriend 24/7. And that exposure really does improve it a lot. And
sure.
how about you? Do you speak any foreign languages?
No, I would like to say I dabble in them, but I do feel for people who are trying to learn English. It's one thing to be able to read in English, and it's another thing to have a full-fledged conversation. So I've studied a little Italian. I can read a lot of memes in Italian. Studied a little French, a little Portuguese. A lot of my students in the classroom, they're native Portuguese speakers. A lot of them are from Angola. So I've dabbled in all of those languages, but nothing too serious. I don't have right now with my life, I don't have time to study any other language besides English. It's teaching, YouTube, repeat pretty much.
Yeah, I feel you 100% because I would love to dedicate more time to improving my French, but then I can't really find the time at the moment, or maybe I'm not prioritizing it as much. But um, let's get into your classroom teaching. So, are you teaching English as a foreign language in a school, or is it an academy? What is your kind of day job?
Sure, it's a public high school. So we have students from Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, Afghanistan, Congo, Syria, Angola, Burundi, DRC. I might have repeated a couple. So yeah, we have even though we're a small town in Maine, we have quite an eclectic group of students. So yeah, that is my goal. Some of the students have newly arrived that I have like for one class. So their English level is like absolute zero. And then I have some students who probably by next year will transition into what we call mainstream. So they will be with teachers who are speaking English at a normal rate. So yeah, we have a whole
Interesting. So
gamut.
it's, yeah, people from all over the place.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And I think that students from other parts of the world might have a little bit more respect for their teachers than students who have been born in the United States. So I have really enjoyed the last 2 years. For the first 20 years of my career, I taught native born English students. And then the last 2 years, I made that transition, and it's been great.
Why did you decide to make the transition?
Okay, so I was teaching English and doing YouTube for ELL students. So I thought if I could dovetail the two, it would free up some time, and it has. So sometimes when I do a lesson for YouTube, I can incorporate that into my classes, kind of like killing two birds with one stone.
Excellent. I mean, it sounds like a logical choice to make, and everybody wants more time, of course. And time is money at the same time. So if you can do something that means you do less prep, for example, to free up time to create YouTube videos, then it's a win-win situation, really.
It was, yeah, brand new school. My first year there was the first time the school opened. So yeah, it was a no brainer, as we say. They had a position open. I didn't have to think about it. I just asked my principal, "Hey, can I change to this school?" They said,
Wow.
"Sure."
Excellent. Perfect. So, with this new school and teaching people from all over the world, what are the biggest pros, the biggest advantages, the biggest positives of this job?
Oh, for me, yeah, it's the connection with my students. Like I said, there's just a tremendous respect for teachers. Most of them, when they enter the room, the first person they say hi to is me. Now, I don't need that, but I definitely like that connection where they think enough of like not running over to see their friends. It's like, hey, acknowledge the teacher. That means a lot to me. Yeah, I liked I like young people in general. I've always taught 13, 14-year-olds. This job is more like 17 and 18-year-olds. So getting students prepared for life outside of high school, yeah, it's super rewarding. And a lot of times when the students are immersed in the language, their skills within a couple months will get so much better. And of course, that is also rewarding to see how comfortable they become with the language. There's one class that I have. We have 4 students in there, and all we do, it's a civics class. So it's about government, but all we do is we have a chat for like an hour. And each week they come in, their English is better, their smiles are bigger. Yeah, it's really rewarding. Love it.
I mean, it sounds great. And my way of teaching usually is to try to make the class fun, interesting, entertaining, keep them speaking as much as possible, because usually people don't ask you like, oh, do you know English? No, they ask you, do you speak English? Which is why I put a lot of emphasis on speaking in the classroom. In my case, always virtual. But I think the difference between a chit chat with your friend and an English class, even if it is a conversational class, is corrections. So how do you go about correcting like little vocabulary mistakes, grammar mistakes, and so on?
Yeah, to be honest, and I think teaching is an art. So there's no one right answer. I could teach one way, my colleague could teach another way, and it could work. But what I do is can I say never? I never correct. I never correct. And this is my philosophy, that if I stop their conversation to correct them, they might be less likely to speak in the future. So I have a student who, when they use the pronoun I at the beginning of a sentence, they always say me. And they've said it for a couple months. I want to correct them and just like, oh no, just say I when it's at the beginning instead of, me wants to eat lunch. But I figure that he will eventually self-correct. So I want him to just be confident in his speaking. So I will not correct that. That might be wrong to some teachers, but I don't want to stop their flow. I want them to gain confidence.
I remember in the early days of teaching English to business people in the classroom, but it was like a little meeting room at different companies. I'd always take Post-it notes with me. And I love Post-it notes. I don't really use them anymore, but when I was teaching in person, I'd always have Post-it notes and I'd be writing some different things. And I'd write down some of the students' mistakes. And like you, I never really want to interrupt anyone unless they make the same mistake over and over again. But as you said, it kind of depends on each teacher, and there is no right or wrong. There are just different philosophies. But with Post-it notes, I'll always write them down and then turn it into a game or an activity at the end of the debate or discussion. And then I'd be like, it depends of the weather. And I'd write it down and be like, okay, guys, what do you think? There's a little mistake here. Can you figure it out? What is the mistake? How do you correct it? So this was my kind of go-to way of correcting when I was teaching in person. And then online, I'll use the chat a lot. So I've got good at multitasking, and people say that men cannot multitask, but I'm proving you wrong.
Very nice. I don't think I multitask well. So
No.
yeah, my wife though, I don't know how she balances everything she does, but she does. Great job.
Wow. A clap for Jamie, right?
Jamie, yeah, good memory.
I'm quite good with names. In your case, in a classroom in particular, how do you memorize people's names?
Okay. That's a good question. Now my classes are very small now. My largest class, I think, is 10. But when I had classes of, let's say, 25, So I might have 120 students during a school year. I made a great effort. My homework that first week was to learn everybody's name. So I think I did a great job. It also helps with like discipline in the classroom. If a student is misbehaving, it's important to know their name right from the start. So I think during the year, I do a very good job. It's very important for me to address the student by name, make it more personal.
Yeah.
However, sad to say, once they leave my classroom, I have a lot of difficulty remembering. Yeah, I just ran into a student from last year. I ran into a student in the store yesterday, and I was so mad at I could not remember her name. So I've had well over 1,000 students in my career, probably closer to 1,200. So yeah.
I mean, if you can memorize them during the school year, then that's enough. I mean, there's only so much space in our brains.
Right. And I will tell them, like, you had 8 teachers, but I had 100 students. Nobody has ever given me problems about not knowing their name. And there are ways that you can have a conversation without actually saying their name, which is what I often do.
No, perfect. Now, moving on from the physical classroom and your day-to-day work, tell me about your YouTube journey and content journey. How did it all start out?
Yeah, good question. Back in 2019, very early in 2019, for some reason, I said, I want to learn another language. And a lot of Americans learn Spanish or French. So I said, I'm going to be different and try Italian. And I think that it has never been easier to learn another language. We have so many resources available to learn. YouTube is a great way to learn another language. So I started watching YouTube to learn Italian.
Mhm.
And I actually had a speaking partner, and he told me about Bob the Canadian. He's
Oh,
like, oh, you should check out this guy quite a bit. Like, you remind me of him. It's like, oh, okay. So he was live one time. So I popped into his live. I'm like, I like the way this guy is teaching. It's very similar to the way I teach. So I thought, why don't I try something myself? So that's kind of how I got into it. It's almost 5 years to the day. We're recording this on January 18th, I think, or 19th. And I think I started January 20th or 21st of 2020, a very interesting year.
great timing.
Yeah. And the whole idea for my YouTube channel, I wanted to go out into a grocery store, into a pharmacy and teach. And my first couple videos might have been like that. And it's very tough to do that because of the audio. And so I did change my way of teaching, but that was the intent at first. Then the world shut down. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we,
During this time, during the pandemic, a lot of people were at home. They had to watch content and do stuff to keep them kind of occupied. So was it a good time for you to start the channel and get kind of traction with the views and stuff like that?
yeah, it was a great time because, as you said, we were shut in our houses, and what I would do is I would go live like every day for an hour. So it was a good way to chat with people, to feel like you were not cooped up. Do you use that phrasal verb?
Yeah,
Cooped
yeah,
up in
cooped
yeah,
up like a chicken, like hens. They're kind of like
100.
trapped and like cordoned off, really. So yeah, you cannot escape. You're cooped up.
It happens every winter where I live because it's so cold, you don't really want to go outside. So you might feel cooped up inside your house. Well, certainly during the pandemic, we felt cooped up, but it was nice to go live, and I might have had 15 or 20 people in the chat, but it was often the same people every day. So we would get to know each other. And I even think last year I met a few in person. So
Oh
that
yeah.
was fun. Yeah.
Perfect. So you said it started out by trying to show real life scenarios and situations, which obviously being cooped up and locked down was pretty hard to do. Uh, so how did the channel and the content evolve over the coming months and years?
Yeah, that's a good question because my channel is definitely different from how it once was. Now I've shifted into more like watching the news and teaching the difficult terms they use on the news. And it's really helped my channel grow. And I think the reason is that nobody else is doing it like I'm doing it.
Hmm.
Like some teachers might do it for some new stories, but I do 2 or 3 new English lessons each week. And most of it is centered on the United States. We're getting a new president on Monday, so those videos have done pretty well. I think anything with Trump in the title, there's a certain number of people who are attracted to that. So, yeah, and it's been fun. When I went to college, I have a double major in both English and history. So I love history. I love not so much current politics, but I do like the history of the job of president. We have the California wildfires. I did an English lesson about that. People seem to be interested in that. So often tragedies will bring people to the channel, which, I wish it wasn't like that, but I think just most people are interested in negative. So I try to sprinkle in some good news every so often, but
Okay. And through these videos that you've made recently, have you noticed that there is a big difference in like the engagement between videos that are talking about terrible, terrible things and videos talking about, for example, someone winning the lottery?
right. Yeah. I think that click through rate, that's the important thing, try to get people to click. So if the title has something like 100 people dead, oh, wow, what happened here? So yeah, I'm trying to get better with my titles. Yeah, I don't want them to be too outrageous, but just enough. And I never, so I've covered the war in Ukraine. I've covered the war in Gaza. And the important thing I think about a teacher is I never give my opinion. I just always take it from, I hate what these people are going through. And I think most people can relate to that. No matter how you feel politically, the fact that innocent people are dying is a horrible thing.
No, no, 100%, absolutely. And I watched a couple of your videos that you've made recently related to the news because I was like, okay, this is interesting. Because I think a lot of people can maybe talk about the news and they have podcasts maybe of similar channels where people are discussing what is going on. However, I noticed in your case that you're actually using a lot of clips from the news in the United States and then breaking down the difficult terms. And you said you make what, 2 or 3 of these per week?
I try to, yeah. Yeah, on a good week, I could probably get out 3.
That
Yeah.
sounds like a lot of work, and there is a fair bit of editing to do as well. So, how long does it take to make a video, and what is the kind of process of you thinking of the video and then actually posting it?
Yeah, I've calculated that. I think it's between 5 and 6 hours. Like when I have the idea, when I find the right news story, the news story has to be kind of perfect because if too many of the difficult words are used, I can't make a video from that. But if the reporter is just sprinkling in the difficult words, I take maybe a 2-minute clip. So I will slow the clip down a little bit. I will put the words on the screen. And then when they use an interesting phrasal verb or an idiom, maybe some difficult vocabulary that they could use outside of that news story, I
Mhm.
think that's the real key for that, to try to make that news story, oh, I'm going to use a big word here,
Well,
applicable to their everyday life. So,
I mean, I think a
but,
lot.
but my kids are no longer at home. My wife and I will often, I can edit when we're both just sitting on the couch and watching some kind of mindless video. So it's, yeah, now that I don't have so much time with my children, this has become my new baby, if you will.
Exactly. And is the plan moving forward to continue with this type of video?
I think so. I was really happy, not politically, but I was really happy that Trump got reelected because I think there will be more news stories with him rather than Kamala Harris. If she would have been elected, I think it would have been more even keel. You just never know what President-elect Trump is going to say, so I think it might be good material in the future.
No, no, 100%. It's funny because you're right that Trump does divide opinion and people have very, very strong opinions on him, whether you like him or not. And speaking about Donald Trump, a couple of days ago, I made a short video, a reel, and I was explaining what the word Trump means, aside from his surname. And to Trump is like to be better than. You can come up trumps as well when you kind of have success when it looks like you're not going to. And in the north of England, we also use the word trump to say fart. So
Oh,
it's like, oops, sorry, I trumped. That's a smelly trump. And it's interesting because my hook was, this is Donald Trump. And I said, because I didn't want to get into politics too much, but I sprinkled in just lightly a little bit of my opinion. And I just said, the less we speak about him, the better. And then in the comments, I was like, some people saying, oh, Lewis, this is amazing. Other people saying, Lewis, how dare you? But no, it's an interesting thing, and I thought I'd share that with everybody. So to trump in Northern British English is to fart.
that's a rough one. That's a rough one.
It's an interesting one. Now, anyway, moving on from YouTube and all of this stuff, in your free time, when you're not editing and making videos, what kind of hobbies are you into?
Well, I love traveling. I love traveling. Like you said earlier, other languages. I'm fascinated by other languages, other cultures. So luckily with YouTube, I'm going to always keep my day job. I will be a teacher until I retire. And I love it. I love it. I love going to work. Never a bad day. There may be bad spots, an hour or two here, but in the whole realm of things, it's a good job. So I will keep that. I will use my YouTube money in order to travel and bring my wife along for most of the trips. So in my free time, I am probably way too much on checking flights to destinations. Last year, I was fortunate enough to visit Brazil, did some English lessons there, met an incredible subscriber who has been with the channel since the beginning, went to Iceland, Poland, Turkey. I now have more hair because a Turkish doctor said, hey, I noticed you were going bald. I was like, well, I know I'm going, you didn't have to mention it. And he said, well, I can fix that. So I did some research and they're like, we can put some more hair there. Okay. So I visited Turkey, met up with some subscribers there. We're going to France next month. We're going to Mexico in April. So yeah, traveling, I guess, would be the my next biggest hobby.
It's amazing as well because I think everybody loves traveling, or at least they love the idea of traveling. Personally, the actual moments when you're like waiting at the airport or your flight's delayed, all of these little things related to the journey can be a little bit frustrating, a little bit annoying. But then when you're in the destination and you've checked in at the hotel or the apartment, then it's perfect. And I think it's something quite universal that everybody can talk about travel. Everybody looks forward to going to different destinations. And speaking about destinations, what would you say have been your favorite trips and your favorite places that you have visited?
Oh man, that's hard. I've never been to a place that I didn't like. I've actually been to London. It's been about 30 years, but I really enjoyed my time in London. I mean, such an iconic city. You see Big Ben, you see where'd I go? Westminster Abbey, double-decker buses. Now, I am old enough to have visited London when they still had the red telephone booths.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably not so much now, But I loved it. I loved breakfast in England. I pretty much ate breakfast 3 times a day.
Like
But
full English, you mean, or what?
yeah. Oh, I loved it. I loved it. Tea in the afternoon. Oh, I got right into that. That is a great tradition. Have a little tea, some crumpets. I loved it. So just because you're British, I will say I did enjoy my time in England. I can't wait to go back. I would like to explore more outside of London, but yeah, the people were great too. And no language barrier. So that's great.
And because you speak a superior version of English, then it was perfect, right?
I think so. I think I might have taught some of the Brits, how to speak a little bit better. Yeah.
It's
No,
funny because
I love the British accent. I really do. I really do.
I love accents in general, and a lot of people sometimes will make a joke, English people at least, when I say that I was in Australia for a year and I worked there and I was teaching English, and then like, what? Teaching the Australians, right? It's like, no, foreign students. But go on.
I have a question about accents.
Okay.
So I can definitely tell a British accent from an Irish accent or a Scottish accent. I, as an American, have quite a bit of difficulty if somebody is speaking in an Irish accent quickly. Does the same go for you, or is it not too bad?
It's not too bad. I think I'm kind of used to it because when I was at university, there were quite a lot of Irish people there. Again, when I was traveling and working in Australia, I had a few Irish friends there too. But I do sometimes get a little bit confused with certain Irish accents and certain Scottish accents. And I'll kind of mix them up. And I don't know if you do the same thing, but if I'm watching TV and maybe it's a game show or a reality TV show, and my girlfriend, who's Spanish, would be like, oh, where are they from? What accent is that? And sometimes I'll be like, I think they're from like Glasgow and I think they're Scottish. And then 1 minute later, I was like, oh, yeah, so back home in Dublin. I was like, damn it. So that's something I do kind of mess up a little bit.
Okay, so I don't feel so bad anymore.
No, you're
And I
not
think
alone.
when you talk with Bob the Canadian, I bet you will not be able to distinguish between our accents. You said earlier where the United States is kind of blending into one accent. I think the same is true for Canada. Like, if you look at English speakers in those two countries, there's not a lot of difference with our accent.
Are there any little things that I should like watch out for to be able to tell the difference between your accent and his accent?
Maybe like at the end of if a Canadian is speaking to other Canadians, maybe they will say "eh" at the end of their sentence. Like every sentence is a question, even though it's not a question. And when they say about, they do that OUT. That's a dead giveaway. But other than that, it's pretty similar.
Okay, interesting. A dead giveaway. Lovely phrase. What does it mean?
Well, it means you can't hide it. Like there's no escaping it. Let's see. How could I use a dead giveaway?
It's like a tell, right? It's a clear
Mhm.
tell, like maybe for a magician, if they're doing a magic trick. A tell is like something that reveals what they are doing. So in this case, if something is a dead giveaway, it is something that reveals the truth, kind of.
Right. I think both of us have been pretty neutral when we talk about politics, but if we slip up, oh no, that's another English phrasal verb, and we say something that might reveal how we feel politically, it would be a dead giveaway. So I don't think we've done that quite yet. Well, maybe you might have said something that was a dead giveaway on your opinion of Trump, but we'll leave it at that.
I was just sprinkling it in as you were mentioning earlier. Not making it too obvious, just like, letting people have an idea so then they can put two and two together and reach a conclusion.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, I think we will call it a day there. So, Brent, it's been an absolute pleasure. Time flies when you're having fun. Sometimes when I'm having a chat with friends for 45 minutes. It feels like it's 2 hours, but this time we've been having a little chat, getting to know each other, been asking you about your teaching, your YouTube, your travels, and so on. And as I said at the beginning of the video, let us know, guys, where you are from and where you are based at the moment. And I hope you really, really enjoyed this video. I sure did.
I did as well. Thank you so much, Lewis.
My pleasure, Brent. And thank you, everybody. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.